And we're live! Yay! Hi, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here and you don't know my face, my name is Stephanie Jean. This is my channel where I like to talk about stuff on the internet. Today we are joined by...
Hi, I'm Ty. That's it.
Nice.
That's all you
I
get.
love how, I have this, monologue, basically, that I do every time. And you're just like, hi, I'm Ty.
I'm
Um,
simple.
so we were also going to have Taylor Clark here. However, she has to go get some antibiotics right now. She's going to try and join us later if she can, but she might not be able to, which is totally fine, totally valid. We get it. Stuff happens. But yeah, today we're discussing the book Things in Jars by Jess Kidd. We have decided to do a quarterly book club. Basically, we pick a book and we have 3 months to read it, and then we talk about it. This book was chosen by Taylor, so it's really unfortunate that she can't be here. Hey, Bocage. I don't know. Do I click on it? Yeah, I should click on it. We have a viewer. Yay. Okay.
Hi, Jacob.
So yeah, I guess we'll just jump in. The premise of this book, Ty, you have a physical copy. You want to read the back cover?
Sure. So, well, these are all reviews, actually. Hold on, let me see. It's
Or like
actually
the
the front
inside
cover.
sleeve, since you have a dust
Yeah.
jacket.
Yes, I have a dust jacket. All right. Bridie Devine, a flame-haired, pipe-smoking detective extraordinaire, is confronted with her most baffling puzzle yet: the kidnapping of Christabel Berwick, the secret daughter of Sir Edmund, whatever his middle name is, Berwick, a peculiar child whose powers have captured the unwanted attention of collectors at this age of discovery. Winding her way through the city streets of Victorian London, rest until she finds the young girl, even if it means unearthing secrets about her own past that she'd rather keep buried. Luckily, her search is aided by an enchanting cast of characters, including a 7 foot tall housemaid, a melancholic tattooed covered ghost, and an avuncular apothecary. But secrets abound in this foggy underworld where nothing is quite what it seems. Blending darkness and light, Jars is a mesmerizing novel that collapses the boundary between fact and fairy tale to stunning effect and explores what it means to be human in inhumane times. At least that was the goal.
Wow. That was the goal. Yes. A very fine goal indeed. So where do we want to start with this, Ty? I think we should just kind of
I think we should
start
just,
off
I don't know,
with
just kind of
our
just
first.
jump into it, yeah.
Yeah, our first reaction is that we don't like. Okay, I'll speak personally. I can't speak for Ty, even though I know Ty agrees with me. Um, not a fan. Just not a fan. Personally, it's because I think maybe it's because I don't like the dingy, grungy, macabre, gothic England setting vibe. All of that. I might be able to put up with it for a show or a movie or something really short. But this, it just wasn't it for me. The language was very descriptive, very descriptive. At first, I thought that was going to be a plus. At first, I was like, oh, this is beautiful poetic language. I'm really into it. But then, it just kept going. And I don't know, maybe it's because I would have liked more depth in the personal relationships, more growth in relationships than there were. And I would have preferred that over the extreme amount of description on how disgusting everything is and people throwing their waste buckets out on the street. And, I'm just yuck. And that's not even the gore. The gore comes up, and I'm just like, ugh, this is even worse. Ugh. And that's definitely a personal preference thing. I know there are so many people who love this book, who think it's just the best thing ever. But right off the bat, stylistically, that's my issue with it.
Yeah. We should start out by saying, if you haven't read this book, spoilers, duh.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
on the contrary, to that, I think that's probably for me, that was probably in terms of like the setting, the like Victorian London, with the exception of describing people throwing their waste buckets out the window. I think that the way that she describes it is beautifully, and like just I don't know, it's on par with pretty much every other description of it, except she shows like the really bad sides of it, you know.
Yeah.
But
But
other
that was
like
also
I
the
really
thing.
do
Like,
love
how
like
many times are you going to say that it smells like putrid human waste and flesh? Like, how many times do I need that description? Not many. Really, only
I
once
don't.
is.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong there. She does describe it that way a lot. But one thing that I did enjoy for a while was the like, descriptive flowery language imagery until it came to like maybe the middle of the book, and I was just like, okay, now I feel like you're trying to meet a word count.
Yeah.
Um, like because it's just you don't need four adjectives to describe something that you described 2 pages earlier.
And how many
Um,
times do we have to describe her hat? You described the hat once. It's the same hat over and over. So
oh
why do you need
yes,
to
and
keep describing the hat?
oh my god, yes, her ugly bonnet. They just kept calling and like they just kept calling it her ugly bonnet, and I was just like, I like maybe like there's a meaning behind that stupid bonnet that like I just didn't understand. But from
You
like
know,
what
like
I
if there was
got
like
from it,
backstory, like it was the only thing she had from her mother, like then I'd be like, oh, okay, then I know why we
right,
talk about it so freaking much. But no, it's just her ugly bonnet that she
exactly,
doesn't like.
exactly, and like everyone's just like everyone hates this damn bonnet, or this darn bonnet. Sorry,
You're
um,
good.
and then I don't know, like I was just like there are more important things to talk about from like a reader's perspective. I like authorial intent um may be different. I made a mark in here somewhere, but I didn't write down the page number. Um and where I was like enough. Nope, that's not it. Anyway, um but I don't know, the entire book was like full of flowery language, which if it wasn't a book, I could appreciate. Like if this was a series of poems, I think it would be better.
Yeah.
Kind of written like the Crank and Glass books, like that.
Hmm.
I feel like if it was a series of poems made it like compiled into like a longer collective, not necessarily an epic, but
Or
like
even
the
if it
Hoskins
was like
novels.
like um like it's written third person omniscient, but if it had like a third person omniscient, but like first person omniscient,
Yeah.
like a narrator, you know,
Hmm.
that would kind of like the book thief, that would
Yeah,
make it maybe more palatable for me.
I
Um,
agree. Well, like the thing with the narrator is that I enjoyed the narrator so much. Like I think the narrator was probably like my favorite presence in the entire book.
mm,
Um, which is crazy because you have all these super interesting characters. You have a 7 foot tall housemaid. You have a ghost
Cora.
who, yeah, Cora. We love Cora.
And I
Um,
loved Ruby. I
and
wanted more of Ruby. I felt like he was
I wanted
barely
more.
there.
Right,
That's a
and
pun because
like
he's a ghost. It was puns happen a lot with me if you didn't know that, and I always notice them after I say them. So, yay.
a mess. Like I don't know. Like I wish Ruby was more of a presence. And like I loved Ruby. I loved Ruby. I wish he was there more. I wish when he was there, he offered a little bit more.
Hmm.
I just feel like they just kind of kept him like sparse, and like he was like very prevalent in the beginning, and then he would come in and out throughout the novel. Um, but I don't know. I feel like after a while he stopped offering substance, and I feel like
Yeah.
his storyline with Bridie wasn't. It didn't feel complete to me. Like
It
it
was
was just
very
kind of like,
like, oh,
oh,
I hit my word count. Now I need to wrap everything up. The end.
exactly. My editor is rushing me to get these last few pages out. Whatever. Um, whatever the end, and then Ruby fades away, like
Yeah, literally. He just kind of like, so
disappears.
yeah,
I
yeah,
can't. And the thing is that I really, really, really wanted to like this book. I really
yeah.
did. And I
Me too.
just it's not that I like dislike it. It's just not enough for me. I feel like if it would have had 100 more pages,
Hmm.
but with less flower. Like in those 100 pages, didn't have like such like descriptive language that takes up most of those 100 pages. I think that I might have liked this book a lot more. Because there are just some things. Some of these things just don't make sense. First, oh, I didn't even notice that there was a mermaid on the book jacket. Well, that would have been dead giveaway. Also, I feel like that entire storyline, which was the entire storyline of the freaking book, was so anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it was so anticlimactic.
So the storyline of Christabel, you know, she's this daughter of Amaro, but she is Amaro and half human, I guess.
Yeah.
And
Or like,
so
yeah.
like then she gets back into a river, not the ocean, a river, which to me was like, okay, that's not quite right,
But it's
but
crazy
whatever.
because even earlier in the book, they're just like, yeah, when you put them in the ocean, like they turn back into their true form. And then
Hmm.
they like put her in a river. They throw her into a river.
Yeah,
And then like we never even get a great description of this true form, you know? Like
yeah,
it's just kind of just like, oh, it's foam and bubbles, and then that's it, and then we never hear about her again.
yeah. And like
Which is
earlier on, right, when the bad guys are kidnapping her and she bites one of them.
mhm,
Like we don't actually get to see the full effect of what that bite does because he's put out of his misery before that can happen. So
mhm.
I don't know. It's like, oh, we're supposed to be so scared of her. And also, like, she doesn't talk. And also, these animals that she feeds on, like snails and
And
whatever else,
newts.
newts, that's
Yeah.
right, thank you. They just sacrifice themselves. They just come to her willingly to be munched on. Like, where does that happen in nature? Where does that happen? That does not make any freaking sense to me that she doesn't have to go hunt for it. Like it could be like a mind thing, maybe, you know, like
Mhm.
she's like calling to them, but she'd still
Right.
have to hunt them once they're there.
Right. You would that's what you would think. Like, but at the same time, this book is like kind of crossed in fantasy. Um,
Hmm.
which and just right off the bat, like a lot of the mythology and the like the mythological creatures, just the lore on them are just not correct.
Yeah,
Or like not on par with I don't know, previous I don't want to say accounts, but previous accounts of these
yeah.
mythological creatures. So there's that. I feel
Which
like
is
because
fine.
this
Like you
book
could definitely take a myth and like rewrite it. I mean, look what Twilight did.
absolutely right,
But
absolutely.
I don't know. It's just like if you're gonna do that, you have to be clear on what that
And
means. You
yes,
know, like Twilight took a vampire, which originally, like if you're talking Dracula, like they had fur on their hands and turned them into sparkly in the sun. But they explained why. They explained how. They explained when.
hmm
They don't do that in this with this like
right,
Morrow mermaid thing. Um,
right,
and
and like
also like
also, oh,
sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. Also, like they talk about how her eyes go from pearl to jet. Why? When? How? Explain. It's like Arkansas and Kansas. America, explain. It's the same kind of frustration that I'm feeling.
Yeah. Oh my god. And also, like, because this relies so heavily on the narrative, or not on the narrative, but on the story that's revolving around the kidnapping of this girl, and how this girl is like so dangerous and like mythological, and she's Amaro and all this stuff. I feel like she should be more present, because the only
Hmm.
time that we ever really like come in contact with her is when she gets kidnapped in the first place, and she bites the guy, and then we never really find out like what that overall effect was.
And then she's in a
And then
box forever.
she's in a box forever listening to stories, and I feel like those scenes are solely serving as the backstory for Mrs. Bibby.
I mean, they
Um,
are. But I did like
but
them. I
I
thought they
like
were
them.
really cool.
Well, they're definitely more interesting than the novel. Like,
Yeah. Definitely more
um,
interesting than the actual investigation that's going on.
right, and it's crazy because it had like such great potential, but it's just lacking. It's lacking
Yeah.
in clarity, probably because it gets lost in the language,
Description.
maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I just there's like four different storylines going on. It goes back and forth. We just Cora deserves better. Like
Yeah. Okay,
I
so
don't
Cora's
know.
backstory is really cool too. That like
It is.
Bridie saved her from being like a circus act. Um,
Mhm.
and I love that. I think that's great. And then what? And it's like, and then what until
Right.
like the end when she's getting stabbed by Gideon.
Yeah.
Like she could have been doing so much in between all of that. Like there could have been so much more action with her. She could have been involved with, she could have been with Bridie throughout things, and then Bridie wouldn't have gotten jumped and gotten her teeth knocked out of her because Cora would have been there.
Hmm.
Cora could have like
But
1, 2, you're out,
right, exactly. Like Cora, throughout the novel, when she was present, I think in every scene she mentions three men, like literally picking them up and like flinging them. So
Hmm.
like, I don't know. I was just like, oh, it's very convenient that the one night that Cora goes out is the night that Bridie gets attacked, and I was just
Yeah,
like, oof. And then after she goes out, we never hear anything about that. Like,
yeah.
um, yeah, because she went out with the Queen of Snakes that night,
Hmm. Which we
and then
would
we
have
just never.
loved some like
Yes,
girl on girl romance, but we didn't get it. It was like a subplot that never
exactly.
plotted, or maybe it was plotted and the book was too long,
It
so
was
the author
just
took that out instead of some of her descriptions. um, but like that would have been really freaking cool. And like in general, like even like oh my god, we were getting close to the end of the book and they're still introducing new characters.
yes,
And I'm just like,
yes, and like
why are there so many characters? Why?
exactly. And I have like having been like focusing mainly on plays over the past like few years. I've been like pretty much getting used to how like keeping characters under 9 people and then not
Yeah,
introducing any after the second act for the most part, or after like Act 2, Scene 1. Like by then,
yeah,
all of your characters should be introduced. There are characters being introduced in the last like 4 pages.
yeah.
And
And I,
granted, they might not
oh,
be. Yeah, granted, they might not be like important characters, but still, I'm just like, this is another name that I have to think about. Like, I can't like, whatever. And then like they're just kind of like cast aside characters, which I guess
yeah,
is okay if it wasn't for like the whole thing with Kemp and like being brought, um, just being revealed to be like Eliza's baby, and also Eliza deserved better. Um,
every
but
Eliza deserves better, but
every
it just comes
Eliza
with the
deserves
name.
better. Right, exactly. It's just it just comes with a name. Um, but I don't know, like there was just so many characters just being introduced like last minute, and I didn't like um I especially didn't like that. I don't know, like I don't see in a plausible world, granted this is, half real world, half fantasy,
Hmm. But it's
proclaimed by the
based in
novel
our
itself.
world.
Exactly, it's based in our world. I don't see why Kemp, aka Edgar, would work with Gideon after it's been pretty much believed by just about everybody, like nobody like straight up said it, but everybody had their suspicions that Gideon was the one who like attacked Eliza.
Yeah.
um and that's why Gideon was sent away, that's why Edgar was sent away, that's why everyone was sent away, and then Eliza eventually died.
Hmm.
So I just don't see in a realistic world how those two would end up teaming up.
Yeah. I don't
So
know.
that's just something that was interesting. I feel like I don't know, because I read this book like halfway through and then I started it over, and then I gained a new appreciation for it because like there's just some, I don't know, there is some good stuff in here, but there's also just some like I don't know what this book was aiming to do.
Yeah.
Is the main I cannot pick out a theme. Like the book jacket says, it explores what it means to be human in inhumane times. Great,
But
but
it
like where
doesn't do
was
that.
that?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And like
At
in
least
all the
not from my
reviews that I've
perspective.
read, since
Mhm.
finishing the book, I read a lot of reviews on it. And it's always like, oh, well, there's this like love triangle between her and this other guy and then this ghost. And I'm like, the other guy, like, he was there for 2
Who he,
scenes?
and he comes back on the last page with a flower.
Yeah.
Done.
Like,
And then even then, it seems like she still doesn't even want to like date him or whatever.
she
Like
doesn't.
she doesn't. She wants to get him drunk so that she can get information about the case on Mrs. Bibby or Dorcas, you know, whatever you
Yeah,
want to
but
call her. She
even
goes
then,
by like 8
I feel like
names.
it ends and she wants it to be about that, but he's there for personal reasons. And
Hmm.
so she's getting him
That's
drunk
why
so
she breaks
that
out the Madeira. Yeah.
yeah, so she's getting him drunk so that she can talk about Mrs. Bibby, but also so he could just say how he feels and then she could
Hmm.
just deal with that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Dorcas for a minute. Mrs.
Hmm.
Bibby slash Dorcas, I thought was really freaking cool. Honestly, I would have preferred if she was the protagonist.
Yep.
Um, her backstory, her little
Same.
flashback stories to Christabel made the book for me. What was her girlfriend's
Yep.
name? Doris?
Della.
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 Like it wasn't
Yeah.
explicitly a lesbian thing, but like she was in love with her. And
Yeah.
I wanted more. I wanted more of Della in the flashbacks.
Yeah. And like it's just crazy because like I don't know, like I agree. Those like Dorcas's backstory made the novel. Like it made
Mhm.
like that is the best part of the novel. Is all these backstories that she's telling Christabel while she's in her cage, um, and you know, still kidnapping her. I think that's what made it. And then I kind of like this how like as she was telling the stories, we would get flashbacks to Bridie's past, and then
Yeah.
how like they would be kind of like interwoven. And like usually I'd be like, no, because then I'm getting confused. However, with this one, I feel like it worked. I feel like it worked because if we would have just got all of this like revealed at the end, I feel like we would have got like 8 pages of
Of
just
info dumping.
exactly and like who wants that? Like
Yeah.
no, nobody wants that. I don't know. I feel like that really worked, and I feel like that is like what made this book for me as well. Was those flashbacks, or not those flashbacks, those stories? Oh my god, there's snails on the covers too.
Oh, is that what the
Oh my
little gold
god,
flecks are?
yes, there's snails.
So I listened to it on Audible, so it's like a really small picture. So I just saw little gold flecks, but that makes sense. As far as Bridie's flashbacks go, I mean, I only cared about the one with Ronan. That was it. But everything with Gideon was a really interesting, terrifying character.
Hmm.
But I felt like in the ending, he was kind of forced in there. You know, like
Yeah,
why does he care about about getting Christabel? He doesn't. He just wants
right.
another thing to experiment on, which is kind of like weird because his MO has been humans.
Hmm. Yeah,
um
yeah because like I don't know, like I was kind of expecting like there to be a plot twist, and then what's his face, Sir Edmund would be the one to like like kidnap his own daughter and like start doing experiments on her because he's like what's the word, obsessed with all things that come from the water. So I was just like, oh
mhm,
yeah, there's gonna be that plot twist, and then they're just like, oh, Gideon's alive, and I was just like, oh okay, whatever. And
yeah.
then Gideon was just like, haha, I set up this whole thing and I bought this child, whatever. um I don't know, it just didn't feel right because I don't know, like you said, his entire mo was to experiment on humans
Yeah.
because he you know I don't know, this book is a mess. um but um you know it's okay.
Gideon at the end, it was just like, oh, the big baddie from her past is here. Let's freak
Right.
out. And I'm like,
I was like not freaking out. I was
oh
like,
no. Like, yeah, I was worried about her. Like, I had enough invested in her that I was worried for her safety, but also, like, I couldn't stop being like, but why is he here?
right.
Why? And then,
Right.
like,
And like that, go ahead.
sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna go on to something else. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I would say, and then like I just feel like every storyline in here, except for Mrs. Bibby's, was just very anticlimactic,
Yeah.
including Ruby's. Like,
Yeah, and
I don't,
that upset me so much because honestly, the only thing that kept me going through this book was
was wanting
who
to
is
know who
Ruby and
he
Bridie?
is. Yeah.
What is their relationship? Why doesn't she
Hmm.
remember him? And then it's like not even like explicitly stated. You know, she's
Mm-mm.
drowning after saving Christabel, and she has a flashback to when she was a child and she was drowning. And this boy that she had grown really close to, and like so close that they decided that one day when they were older they'd get married. His name was Ronan. um he jumped in after her to save her, but neither of them could swim, and the people who had seen little Bridie fall into the water pull her out, and they're like saving her, but all she's doing is like, I can't find Ronan, he can't swim, he can't bloody swim. And that's it. That's the end of Ronan and Bridie knowing each other. Does he get saved? We don't know.
Yep.
And then the next thing we know is that Ruby's standing there and his tattoos stop moving, and it's an anchor and a mermaid in the shape of a heart on his chest with the name Bridie on top of it. And then he just disappears.
Yeah. And then I don't know, the thing, like the whole thing with Ronan, I really like, I think that was probably the best flashback, honestly.
Yeah,
Um
it was a good
yeah.
flashback.
Yeah, it definitely was a good flashback. But I think the thing with Ronan was that because, like, I don't know, because Ruby is seen as an adult man. Like, Ruby is seen as an adult man.
Ruby is, yes.
Yeah, Ruby is seen as an adult man. He was a boxer, a famous boxer who got killed in a bar fight.
Yep.
So does that mean that Roman survived that? That Ronan
And that
survived that?
Ronan is Ruby. Are we just not going
Exactly.
to talk about is Ronan Ruby?
Right,
You
because
know,
like
and
there was that flashback and then nothing else.
that was like a fundamental moment for her, you
Mhm.
know? So
Yep.
how could she forget Ronan and not recognize him in Ruby? And why
I don't
doesn't
know.
Ruby just fucking say it? Oh, excuse me. Why doesn't Ruby just frickin' say it?
Oh my god. I don't know. Like, just
Like that doesn't make any sense. And then then he's leaving and he's fading away
I
into
don't know. I
nothing.
really don't know,
And
but
he's
like,
like, you need
mhm.
to move on and you should give that guy a chance. I'm sorry, what? What? This whole book, there's been this subtle, we're not really going to talk about it, sexual tension between Bridie and a ghost. And his last words to her is, go be with somebody alive, which I mean, I get, but then she just turns around and does that? Like, we're supposed to buy that? That doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. Oh no, Ty, you froze. Or did I freeze? Oh no. I don't know what's happening, but I'm gonna keep talking. Oh, Ty disappeared. Maybe he'll come back. And there he's back. Welcome back. Hello.
My Wi-Fi just like kicked me off. I'm not sure why. It does
Oh,
that from time to time. Everyone's pretty much asleep still, so I don't know why. Um,
yeah. Oh, Jacob's messaging us right now. Uh-oh, Ty froze. Yeah, no, we got it. We got it. um,
okay, there we go. Not sure
okay.
what. I think I'm back.
Yeah, you're back, but you're very fuzzy. And now you're frozen again.
Nope. For
Maybe disconnect other things from your Wi-Fi. Maybe that'll help. I am sorry, everybody. I don't know what's going on. Um, mm, Here, Ty, I'm gonna kick you out and then come back in. Okay. While he's gone, I'm going to continue to discuss the book. So, yeah, I don't know. It was just really vague what happened with Ruby, and I really wanted more explanation there, and there just wasn't any. Ty is still frozen, but I can hear you.
Oh, great. And I'm probably frozen.
All I heard was, oh, great, and I'm probably frozen. This is going great.
It is going great. It's going about as great as the book.
Yes, it is going about as great as the book. Well, we're running into technical difficulties, and I've talked about my 4 points that I wanted to talk about, but I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to talk about, Ty. And hopefully you'll unfreeze long enough to say them.
There we go. I connected to a different network.
Okay.
Anyway. I think somebody in the living room might be flipping on and off the power strip.
Ah.
Anyway.
Never mind.
But yeah, so right. So yeah, this is going about as well as the book did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I don't really know what else to say about this book other than I don't think a book can survive alone on good intentions.
Mm-mm.
Because I feel like, you know, exploring the ways we remain human in inhumane times, I think that's a great theme for especially like right now, like what's going on right now between, you know, literally everything. And I just feel like it set the bar high, and I had high hopes for this book, and it just kind of missed the mark.
Yeah. I thought it was just like it dragged on until like the last bit where, you know, once Bridie makes the plan on what she's gonna do to get Christabel, then it picks up. Then it was interesting. But before that, everything between that is just the investigation wasn't exciting. The investigation wasn't like, oh, there's a clue. You know, it was just like, oh, here's something that makes me think about my tragic past.
Yeah, pretty much. And it wasn't like the flashbacks aren't really consistent either, like in terms of like where they were placed. Like it wasn't like it was like once every 4 chapters. It was just like here's one, wait 13 chapters, here's one. And then like sometimes they would change months and I'm just like, what is going on? I was just like, okay, like what timeline are we in? I'm confused.
Yeah. And the flashbacks for Bridie weren't linear either.
They weren't.
You know,
yeah,
like,
they would go back and forth.
Here's
and back
one
and
at
forth.
the beginning, and then here's one at the end, and here's some in the middle, and then here's another one in the middle, and then here's the last one, and here's one way before all of that.
Right. The last one was
that,
like way
that made
before.
it really hard for me, especially because I was listening to it in an audiobook. I was just like, wait, what? When is this happening? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. It's really weird. I don't know. I really wanted to like this book. I had high hopes for this book, and this book just let me down.
I gave it 2 stars because I did like I totally just lost my train of thought.
Well, I mean, you liked Mrs. Bibby's storyline.
Yeah, that's true. I really liked Mrs. Bibby's flashbacks and how that got wrapped up at the end. And that's the only thing
that got wrapped up.
Yeah. And I really like Cora and Ruby.
Yeah.
That's it. And here's the other thing. I'm so tired of books set in this period with a female main character and all she does is complain about wearing petticoats. She's used to it. She's used to wearing petticoats. It's not going to be that big of a deal for her.
Right. I agree with that. I completely agree with that. However, I did enjoy the men's disguise.
Yeah,
that she would slip on every now and then. Yeah, that was great, but like seriously, just
That
the
was
rest
one
of
of
the
the
time, oh my
like
god, my
Shakespeare
petticoats are slowing
references.
me down.
There were
Yeah.
like a few Shakespeare references. There was that. Then there's the
Hmm.
Hamlet reference to the gravediggers with the jailers,
Yep.
and their banter. And then there's the king reference, the like circus master who is like trying to be King Henry VIII
Yeah.
with like the 6 wives or whatever.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
that was cool. Um, but the rest of the book is a hard pass for me. So 2 stars.
Yeah.
Really, it should only
Yeah.
be 1 star, but like I feel bad giving 1 star, so 2 stars.
No, like for me,
Well,
like I like
I'll give it the extra star just because I did finish it. If it wasn't for the book club though, I would have DNF'd it.
yeah. Yeah, that's what you were saying the other day. I think I would have finished it regardless, simply because I am just a person who can't not finish a book.
Yeah.
Um, with the exception of War and Peace, I picked it up and I just put it back down. But that's War and Peace. Who finishes that book besides people who are doing their PhDs in like ancient English? No, not ancient. It's not that old. But like English literature, or not
There
even
you go.
English literature, just
Ancient.
freaking literature. Yes, ancient
Ancient
English.
English.
Anyway, but yeah, like I don't know. I wouldn't have DNF'd it. I definitely would have finished it. But I think I'd probably give it 2.5 stars, simply because like I don't know. Like I said, a book cannot survive on good intentions alone, and I feel like that is like what this book is trying to do, is survive on good intentions alone. There's just so many more interesting ways that this book could have gone for me,
Mhm.
including expanding on the whole Christabel situation, and I don't know, giving. She could have used some of that descriptive language to describe what happened after she went into the water, other than bubbles and foam, because that's literally all she said was bubbles and foam.
Yep.
Um, which whatever. I am curious to read more of her work though, and I want to know, um, because apparently she wrote another book called Himself, and
And
it won
another
some
one other
awards.
than that too. There was 3 that I saw.
Let me see here. Himself and Mr. Flood's Last Resort.
Yeah. And I was like, are they related to each other or no?
I don't think they're related. I don't think they're related to each other.
Because if they were, I would guess that Himself was told from Gideon's point of view, which would be like,
Hmm.
that would be interesting. That'd be a fun,
Oh,
scary read.
exactly, exactly. Especially like the man faked his own death. I'm a
Wow.
sucker for those. Like I'm a sucker for those. Just like,
Get
how
your
did he
man.
do it? Like, right, exactly. I'm just like, I'm a sucker for it, because I'm just like, what if I want to do it one day? Like, how do I do it? Well, if I try to do it, I guess I just gave myself away. Like, no, but I don't know. Like, I'm curious to read more of her work, because I don't know. I feel like this is a good reference for poetry. Excuse me. That this book is a really good reference for poetry. Because she describes things like so vividly. Um, and I feel like if it wasn't for a novel, it would be much more concise.
Mhm.
Uh, and I feel like this would make like a great, like I said earlier, great collection of poems, or a great.
Hello.
Oh my God, the
Hello.
love of my life, Taylor Clark.
So sorry. I
Hello.
had a rough morning. Bad day for health. But hello. How are you guys
Hi.
doing?
Good. We're just
Good.
talking about the book. How do you feel about it?
I thought that it was genuinely one of the best fiction, like especially fantasy books that I have read in a very long time. It was just such a good story that I was like, I did not want to put it down. And that hasn't happened for me genuinely for like a fiction book in a really long time. So I was very pleased with it. How did you guys feel? Sorry, I know I'm coming in on probably the tail end of the conversation, but what do you guys think?
We are not fans of
We
it.
just got through. Yeah,
Really?
really.
So
Wait,
you come
why do
here
you-
and you're like,
why
that
do
was
you
one
think
of the
that?
best fiction books. I'm like, oop, not
Why
for
do you?
me.
I
Why do
know.
you feel that way?
Stephanie, you can start.
As I've said, for those of you watching, and by those of you watching, I mean just my husband. Um, well, the language at first was really beautiful. I loved it until I couldn't stand it anymore. I felt like the relationships didn't develop enough. I felt like I would have rather had deeper development in the relationships and like had an actual character arc for, you know, the characters, but there wasn't. And in general, I don't think this is my style of book. I don't vibe very hard with grungy, dingy, macabre Victorian England.
Mhm. Well,
Style.
that's absolutely fair. I think that this was definitely a plot-driven book rather than character, but also I think one of its greatest merits for me reading it was that it was so clear that it was written by a woman, and I appreciated that so much because we had a main character who was so badass, even when she was in so much pain or like, you know, towards the end of the book. I mean, she was always on. She was never like like felt bad for herself or like gave up or like men weren't going around saving her really, you know what I mean? She went in like not I don't want to spoil anything, but in that last
you
scene.
can spoil.
Oh, we've
You
already
can spoil
spoiled
it.
it. Like, we've already spoiled it.
Oh,
Go
okay.
ahead.
Well, she and
Yeah.
her that housekeeper, like that Cora was such a cool character. Like
We love
she
Cora.
wasn't conventionally
Cora.
pretty. She was this huge woman, but like she still held her own. She was strong. She like had the main character's back, and then she was like had that like questionable romance with the Queen
It
of
didn't
Snakes.
happen though.
Awesome.
It didn't happen. We didn't get any of it, and it just kind of like faded off.
I
That
just
was
feel like yes, but that wasn't the book. Like the book was about this mystery and discovering this mystery. And I feel like the character that we got the most of, and also I realized towards the end of the book that I was pronouncing her name wrong. I thought it was Birdie. Like I literally thought her nickname
I
was
did.
Birdie.
I
And
did
was
until I
like,
started
how did
listening to the
that happen?
audiobook.
Like, how do you guys pronounce
Same.
it? I'm fucking confused.
It's Bridie. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I realized
Yeah.
at the end of the
And
book, I was like, wow, I'm so dumb.
I was listening to the audiobook and like following along in the book, like just making like some notes. And I was just like, oh, it's pronounced Bridie. I was just like, oh, okay. Because like when I was first like looking over it, I was just like, oh, Birdie Divine, what an interesting name. I wonder if
Well,
that like
I thought it was
you
Birdie
know
because when
means
we first
something.
meet her, there's all the like ravens and stuff.
Mm.
And so I was like,
Mm.
oh, Birdie because of ravens.
Hmm. Well, I
But,
mean, like, and then, but also, like, speaking of ravens, we can interpret those as just like an ill omen because you know ravens interpret that, and then you know the way the book ends, just
Yeah, but
is
also
just, you know.
like I don't know. I feel like the ravens were just there as like a plot ploy or like a setting ploy. Like, oh, it's a spooky Victorian England. There are ravens everywhere.
I don't know. I really liked it. I also really liked that the book didn't shy away from like the nasty. Like everything was so
Mm.
nasty. And
Yeah.
like the bodies they described and like the like shit underneath London and like every time the river rose and like the dead bodies and like the way that this author like describes the dead bodies. I was just like, oh my God. Yeah.
I didn't like that very much.
I really liked it.
I mean,
Do you
I
like that?
agree that she didn't like shy away from it, but I'm not like super happy that she did it. Also, when you said clearly a female author, I did not know this was a female author until I finished the book.
Oh,
I
really?
thought it was a male author.
Wow.
Because I don't know, like I said this earlier too, like every female protagonist set in this time period just always hates their petticoats, and that's always all they talk about. And I don't know. I feel like the only thing that's like, oh, this is clearly like a female author is that Mrs. Bibby was so complex. Not that men can't write a complex character, but that
I was about to say I'm taking offense.
no, but that like
A joke.
Mrs. Bibby was sorry. Like we get her whole backstory. We watch her from girl to woman to who she is and how twisted she becomes that. And it's not because of a guy. It's not because of, you know, a heartbreak or something. It's not. And so I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. And I also really liked her sort of like where she started and where she ended. And I liked that I didn't really hate her or love her at the end, you know. I was just kind of like, okay, I get it. And so I thought that was really good writing on her part. What did it for me with the loving it, this written by a woman author and how I felt it was really written by a woman author is when I'm just gonna fucking say Birdie when she like dons her like gentleman garb. Oh, did she leave?
I don't think she left. I think she might have just turned off her camera. She's having a coughing fit or something.
When she dresses up into a woman and she goes and sees these like things that these doctors are doing to the patients, whatever. And then
she dresses up as a man?
Yeah, when she's dressing up as a man. And then on her way over, once, it was written, it was like, because she was like having a good old time. She was like winking and like waving at the, at the people passing by. And then she has this line that's like, because a man's function is not to be looked at, it's to look, or something like that. And I was like, yes. And like, we feel that every day, honey. Yes. I love that so much. I was like, yeah, okay, this is definitely like, and I just felt like, because the women characters were all so cool. They were so interesting and different. And like, none of them were these like conventionally attractive, like, ooh, like beauties. And none of it was really centered on romance. Like there were hints of it, but none of it was like, this is now what the story is about. I appreciated that, because really, truly, I thought the story was so fascinating, and I was on board from like start to finish, trying to figure out what was going to happen to this like mermaid creature. So,
yeah, right. And like, I think the whole plot with Christabel is kind of like what turns me off about the book, because like we're surrounded by mystery about this child, and then at the end they throw her into the water, and after pages and pages and chapters and chapters and chapters of descriptive language, all we get is foam and bubbles. So I was just like, dang, like this child and this Morrow this whole time was just this grand spectacle that people pondered about, and just like talked about like what happened. But when it came time for like the Morrow to actually be a Morrow, it was really anticlimactic, and just like in terms of description, and then also just she like drowns Gideon, and then that's that, and then there's foam and bubbles, and then the water goes quiet. I think like that's the biggest thing, is that I read all of these oh my god, yeah, that's really what happened. But yeah, I read all these chapters like leading up to it, and like towards the middle, like in the middle of the book, I started getting super excited. Like once Bridie had a plan, and was like actually had a plan to go after a child, and like Cora got involved, and she was just like, I'll beat someone down for you, like I'm down for you, whatever. I was just like, yes, let's go. And like all this stuff happened, and then like foam and bubbles, that was it. I think like for me, like I'm just really butthurt at this book, because like that part felt very anticlimactic, and I feel like that's what this book was like leading up to this whole time.
Also,
however,
I talked about this earlier, but with Ruby, I'm very upset. Very upset.
I loved Ruby
I loved Ruby so much. Honestly, that's the only thing that kept me going through this book, was to figure out the mystery of Ruby. And then it's just like...
And then he gets 2 sorry pages.
Yep. He gets a flashback that we're supposed to infer
the best flashback
is him, but it's never like stated that it's him. And then he just kind of like disappears.
Well, to be fair, the story foreshadowed that right from the beginning, because the whole deal was like, hey, when you remember me, I'm gonna leave. And that felt very like, it wasn't stated in the book that like he was here because he had unfinished business or something, but that's like a common trope for ghosts. You know what I mean? They come back, or they're haunting someone because they have this thing that's keeping them like tethered to the earth or this realm or whatever. And so I just thought it was fascinating that like they didn't have to go in, the book didn't have to make it about that, but it was enough for the reader to like assume, to infer that like, okay, he's probably here because she doesn't remember who he is. And so then at the very end, I thought it wrapped it up nice with a little fucking bow. Like I do feel like it was a little rushed in comparison to the rest of the novel, but
so rushed. Like
what else were you gonna do with the Marrow? What else were you gonna do? It was what needed to happen, was that she just needed to be put back into the water where she fucking belonged, where we had stolen her from, the humans, and that was it. What else did you want? I was like, just throw her in the water, just fucking put her in the fucking little water, like she'll be fine.
Language, Taylor. Taylor, language.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not get the memo. No one warned me about language.
Yeah.
Well,
My bad.
you weren't here
So-
on time,
so-
so.
Yeah, no, you're good. So like how I feel about that, yes, I was just like, yes, just put her in the water, put her in the water, put her in the water. Although the body of water was not consistent because like straight up in the novel it was just like has to go in the ocean. And then it was just like put it in the river. However, I was just like, whatever, at any rate, this will do. Any body of water will do. Just throw it in there. Just throw it in there. And then I don't know, I imagined I don't know. Exactly. I don't know why I imagined just this big kraken coming out of the water, probably because Mrs. Baby keeps calling her kraken.
Yeah.
But like I expected something a little bit more. Like, I don't know, like at least like a description of the Morrow, or it's something more than foam and bubbles, Like I like with the whole Morrow storyline, I knew that the child was going to be either ending up in a jar or thrown into the water and released into the actual Morrow form. But I was just like I was like, can I have a description, please?
Mhm.
I was like, because like, I was just like, okay, but at the same time, like we already know that the kid has white hair, pupils that change colors, and teeth like a pike. So that's cool. But like, I want to know about like the scales of the tail. I want to know how big the scales are, what color they are, what color tail does she get?
Does her fingers become webbed? Does her hair
exactly
change?
like stuff like that? Those are just all things that I would want to know.
She was injured and drowning, wasn't she? Bridie at this point. So
Yes, but we have a third person omniscient narrator.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's fair. I think it's fair. I still really like the book.
Valid.
Yeah, very valid, very valid. Like I don't know, like we were also talking about like how like in the front cover of the jacket, of the book jacket or whatever, it says that it explores what it means to be human in inhumane times, which like is a very noble goal. Including, I'm not sure when this book was written. Was it? I know it was written fairly recently. 2019. Yeah, I was like fairly recently, and I was like, that is a very noble goal for this, like especially like with everything going on right now, and I just feel like it left a little bit to be desired. Like it was definitely on the path, and it just like didn't quite get there for me. Because it dealt pretty much the whole time with this child who is an abomination, quote unquote, and is seen as a monster. And then we never really get any humanity from the child because the whole time the child's eating snails and needed
humanity from the child. I think it was more about getting humanity from the characters because the child was innocent. I mean, you don't need to have anything else from Christabel to know that she's innocent and she was stolen from her family and she deserves to be put back in the ocean as some sort of like small.
We didn't get any humanity from Gideon.
No, and Gideon.
I would argue we don't even get humanity from Mrs. Bibby, like except for in the flashbacks. Except for when she's telling her little story.
Made her human, and then at the end, her not absolutely just going after Bridie and just she could have just shot her. She could have just like pulled out a pistol and absolutely just like shot her. But they have this conversation and they have this, she like offers her medicine, and then Bridie's like, you got a pipe, and then she leaves. I thought that was a really human scene. I thought that was like a nice moment of like,
but then she just disappears, which is also like that's
but she's gonna die. Like that leg is gonna kill her.
Yeah.
I was satisfied with that ending because she's not going to want to be put in.
I was satisfied with that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was satisfied with that. I don't think I really needed anything else from Mrs. Bibby, which is kind of what, like we had kind of touched on that earlier. It was like kind of one of the only things that really was a satisfying completion for me, at least. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like Cora didn't feel satisfied because like she's just longingly staring out the window towards her like Snake Queen girlfriend that she could have had. And then Ruby doesn't feel satisfied to me because there's no conversation. There's no like, they don't talk about it at all. Like she remembers him, but like she doesn't say that she remembers him.
Mm-hmm.
So that felt weird. And then Gideon's wrapped up nicely because he's finally freaking dead.
Thank God.
For real this time.
And then Bridie doesn't feel wrapped up, and she's not supposed to because she's going on to do more things. But in general, right, the only arc that I feel like Bridie's character went through is that she went from not believing in ghosts and the supernatural to, well, I've seen it, so now I believe it. That's like the only arc, and that happens so early on. She's like, I don't believe in ghosts, but then she sees a ghost, and she's like, well, guess I believe in ghosts.
I don't know. She denies Ruby for a really long time, and she like thinks that he's just
she
this
does.
guy that's just following her around. Like even to the point where like she meets Myrtle for the first time. She's like, "Oh, who's that standing at the window?" And Myrtle's like, "Nobody." And then she's just like, "Come on, you see somebody standing at the window?" And she's just like, "No." And she asks that question to several people in the novel until maybe about like a little more than halfway through the novel. Then she's like, "Okay, then obviously like I'm the only person here who could see him." Like,
Yeah.
and even then she questions her sanity before she's like, "Oh, this might be a ghost." So I don't know. She definitely goes on a little bit of a journey with that. But I think
she
like
also. I'm sorry. I'm about to interrupt you. I'm so sorry.
oh no, you're good. I was just gonna say I think on the other hand though, it's not that's not that big of a deal in this book. I just don't think that that's like a super pressing like.
Yeah, but that's like the only arc I can think of that she goes through. I mean, other than that, she's like, she ends up where she was at the beginning, where she's feeling like she lost a child.
Well, see, like, but then you have the concept of the hero's journey, which a lot of the times, you know, you start out in one spot and then you circle around back to it. It's a full circle.
Yeah,
like,
but you're supposed to
I'm just having a hard
grow
time.
in between.
I know there's supposed to be some sort of change, and I'm trying to pinpoint that with Bridie. I just finished this book literally like 20 minutes before we finished this stream, so like I haven't had time to like sit and digest it. But I'm trying to like figure out like what in her has changed other than just her, you know, belief in the supernatural and stuff like that. So
I think the whole thing has, at the very least, opened her up to like new things, maybe, because now she has is her name Myrtle as her like ward or whatever, you know.
Yeah. And
having her stick around.
The boy.
And then the boy. And so because she feels very solitary in the beginning, you know what I mean? She's not really. She's just kind of by herself with Cora, like the people that come into her room.
Yes.
I did not. Apparently Jacob just came in and put this in here.
And then at the end, she's like, "What are you talking about?"
This shelf thing.
Oh, I don't know.
I wasn't there like 10 seconds ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw him sneak in and bring it.
It's a ghost.
Okay. And then at the end, after she has had this relationship sort of with she's had this relationship with what's his fucking name, Ruby, and she's like gone through this whole journey, whatever, you know, she is kind of now in a place of like openness, and she ends with more people in her house, and you know, Jem like visiting every now and then than she does in the beginning. And so I feel like she's a warmer person, and then she's also more open to Rose, like when he comes in and he clearly has a bundle of like flowers, roses, I think, for her, you know, and she's kind of like, okay, you know, it's definitely left open-ended, but she's not like, get out of here, you know. And after what Ruby said, like, hey, he's a nice guy, you know, I think she entertains it. She's open to it. I imagine that she's open to it. I don't know what that next scene would be, but you know what I mean? So I feel like there's some sort of like change there.
Right. While I agree with that, she goes from being, you know, a solitary creature to like, you know, somebody with, you know, more people around her. I borderline disagree about the Rose thing, because at the very end where she gets the Madeira, it was used previously in several scenes as a tactic to get people drunk so she can get information out of them. And that's what she's seen doing right before she offers the Madeira, is trying to get information about the Mrs. Bibby case. So while I am not opposed to the fact that, you know, she might, you know, be interested in pursuing a relationship with this man, or, you know, open to the idea of it, I can't help but wonder where her motives really lie.
Yeah, I don't think that like she's jumping in to anything, or that she's even ready to entertain anything with Rose, because she just fucking damn it. She just fucking figured out that Ronan was Ruby. and just watched him disappear not even 10 minutes ago.
Mhm.
Like, granted, he's been dead for like a year, but she didn't know. So she has to go through a different like grieving process before Rose
Yeah.
can even be a thing. And honestly,
Yeah, I agree.
like, I feel like in a lot of the reviews that I read before the stream, after I finished the book, everybody was like, "Oh, there's all this tension between her and Rose." I'm like, I didn't get that until the very end. I did not pick up on that.
Yeah, I didn't think there was. There was definitely from his end, desires to pursue something,
Yeah.
but it was clear to me that on her end, she was like, I don't need that,
Which I loved. Which
Yeah.
I loved. I don't know. Like, going back to what Taylor said about this being clearly written by a woman, I agree with that. Like, I could tell, like, there were just like some little lines in there I was just like, yes, like a queen wrote this, especially that line about, like we brought up earlier, about men being made to look, not be looked at. And then also just like how a lot of the
That's another Shakespeare
a lot
reference.
of the
That's a reference
what?
to I want to say it's Midsummer Night's Dream when not Helen. No, yeah, Helena, not Hermia. Helena is doing her thing where she's begging Dimitri to be in love with him, and she says, "It is
Mhm.
the curse upon my sex that men are made to woo and not be wooed." So that's another
This
reference.
book is literally a Shakespeare reference. Well, there you go. But yeah, no, I don't know. I just, first of all, I love things written by women. I will say it hands down. I think that women are the superior writers 98% of the time. Like, I cannot think of anybody who tops like any female writer, really, including Shakespeare. Sorry, Shakespeare. Like,
Shakespeare tops T.L. James.
Well, yeah, well, but like Harper Lee, like I can't really think of many people who top like Harper Lee. Like, I don't know, like I don't know. They're just like very like distinct things that like when a female writer is writing, they'll put into their novels, and I really enjoyed just like some things I could pick out of here. So I agree with Taylor on that, especially considering like Bridie was considered a badass for her day. Even though she complained about her petticoat from time to time, but it's whatever. Cora is just, she's great. Like, Cora is a great character. She like Taylor said, like all these like women in this book are not like conventionally attractive, except for Eliza, and then we see what happens to Eliza.
Yeah.
So
Was Della
I think
attractive?
I don't know. Della had a tumor, and then just Gideon did what he did.
Yeah.
So we never really got much of a description of Della, except for she had like a distended stomach.
She was.
And then...
No, I think she was
pretty.
described as being really pretty because the reason why she couldn't be a housemaid or go with Dorcas is because she was pretty.
Yeah, and the house, like, the lady of the house was like, "You're too pretty. You're gonna make my husband cheat on me." Yeah.
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 So yeah, I believe that she was conventionally attractive.
So
yeah.
Is that the lesson?
She was.
Yeah, she was. Don't be conventionally attractive in Victorian England.
Also, it's interesting that you say the thing about you guys don't like the thing about petticoats because I suppose I'm just coming from a different background of reading because I'm not aware of that, like being annoyingly written into books or anything that like, oh, all these skirts, like I hate these skirts because I don't know. I was like, look, yeah, those skirts are fucking annoying, huh? I bet they are.
But that's a modern thing, that's our brains saying it. And like, I feel like the reason that I see that everywhere is because like, it's supposed to be like something for women of our time to be like, yeah, put some pants on, come on, we got business to do. But in that time, she would have been used to it. It would have been normal. It wouldn't have been, oh, these are such a drag every day of my life. It's like, well, that's just what I wear. It's just clothes.
Well,
I feel like
there's a hindrance in the running because she kind of complains about them too at the end when she's like literally running for her life. I mean, she's like rushing around this estate and it's a matter of her getting caught or not, life or
Right.
death.
And in
And
that
so I
one,
would
in that
imagine
instance,
that
I get it.
running
But if
is
she's
more
just
than
walking
one
down
fear.
the street,
Yeah, but I see that, but at least in like the action scenes when she complains about them, when she's like trying to get something done like that requires her body to move in a certain way, like running.
That's understandable.
Because it's like I would imagine running. I mean, running in a dress is fucking annoying if it's long, Like I get that with one layer. So
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Oh my lord.
I
Yeah.
gave it
I don't
2
know, like-
stars. Ty gave it 2.5 stars. Taylor, what do you give it?
Out of 5 or 10?
Out of 5.
Okay.
Out of
I
5,
would
what
give
the
it
heck?
4. I
We're not-
really like this book. I really,
Okay.
really like
I think I might try to give it another read. At it like maybe when I'm not in the middle of reading a whole bunch of crap written by men.
Says the
But
man
I
in the
don't,
chat.
Okay, but I mean, let's be honest here. Like I said, I just fancy things written by women. Like that's that. Like I could write a novel, and I will still say that any woman can out novel me. I could get all the Pulitzers. I could get the Nobel Peace Prize and whatever other prizes for literature, the American Book Award. I don't care. I will still say that I cannot outright
Female.
Yes, females. I don't know why I'm drawing so many blank. Like I cannot outright Yaa Gyasi. I can't rewrite Harper Lee. I can't rewrite. Well, I can't rewrite Harper or outright Harper Lee because she's dead now. But you know what I mean. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Women are just superior. I'm sorry.
I'll take it.
Whatever. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on the book. I am gonna give it another read though, because like there are some things that I wanted to like go back and like highlight, but I had the audiobook set to like 2 times the speed, so just so I could like get through it. And that actually helps staying focused. I wish there was an audiobook for literally every book, but there's not. But yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna go back and give it another read and see if I could like pick some more things out of it, because there are some really interesting things. And like kind of unlike you, Stephanie, I actually kind of did enjoy the gore and like the way that things were described in terms of like the bodies and like important visuals. Sorry.
Yeah.
I liked it because it was it was written as such a big part of.
Honestly, it might just be
the
because I
environment.
was sick while reading most of this.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mhm.
So maybe when I'm not sick.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like I really just liked like the way that she described like the turning of the jar, like when she's first seeing like this pickled baby Morrow in there, and I'm just like, wow, like
Mhm.
the Winter Mermaid. And I just really love like how that whole scene was described, just how like she's turning the jar and how like with each turn something new comes to light, and how it's a creature that's like both marvelous and horrifying at the same time. I really liked that. So I think that there's just some more like little things I would like to pick out. But I was saying earlier that like because the language is so poetic in a lot of it, I feel like this would work really great if it was like formatted almost like a Hopkins book, in which like there's a bunch of like free verse poem type things stacked into the novel. I just feel like for me, I feel like that would have worked out a little bit better for me, mainly because it wouldn't have. I just feel like concise would have been nice. There's just sometimes where she just kind of rambled on and was like, describing
this is how
something
it
at
looks
length.
outside the window. All these details about what it looks like outside the window, but it doesn't matter because our main character isn't paying attention to it anyway.
Exactly, and that was a thing, like a lot. And I was just like, oh my god. I was just like, oh, she's looking out the window, and then like she's like describing what's going on out the window, and then she says, oh, but Bridie's not looking out the window. She's looking at something else. And I'm just like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. That was great. That was some great scenery. However, it's irrelevant. So
why did I just fill my brain with all of this if it's not gonna be important for the scene because she's inside?
I did a good job of world building. I was definitely Victorian London, so
yeah,
I appreciate it.
I agree with that.
I do agree that it was lengthy.
Yeah, like they were just like lengthy descriptions, which like if it's relevant, it's fine. But like you said, it was an excellent way to do world building. Like I will give her the credit for that. Her world building is fantastic. I just wish that more of the world was relevant.
Yeah, that's fair.
because a lot of this book is spent inside.
Yeah, and I wish
Yeah.
that description, instead of it being about, outside the window, I wish it was put into, details on characters and like they moved in this specific way and detailing out their movements, their facial expressions more than the setting. Because once you've established the setting is established. She wasn't traveling a lot, like to different cities or anything. It was all relatively close. So, yeah. But for our next book,
yeah,
for our next quarterly read, has been picked by Ty.
My nephew is knocking on the door. Also, I shimmer. He's knocking on the door and he's telling me open the door, but I'm busy. And I Shimmer Sometimes Too by Portia Oleguiala. I cannot pronounce her last name, but Portia O. I'll send you guys a link to get it. It's a poetry book. It should be a pretty quick read, but I love her spoken word, and I bought her book and just haven't gotten around to reading it. So that's it. It's gonna be fun.
So if anybody wants to join us in reading this book for the next stream, which will be, we should probably schedule that right now so people know. So we do normally 3 months, right? So it's October 25th. 1, 2. So January, late January.
Could we make it maybe January 24th? Because Sundays are my days off for school.
That sounds great. So cool. Sunday 24th. Sunday, January 24th, right here on this channel with Taylor and Tyler. We're going to be discussing, what's the name of the book again? I Shimmer Sometimes Too?
Yep.
I Shimmer Sometimes Too, a collection of poetry. Read it, be there, or be square. That's it. Closing thoughts, closing statements. Taylor, go.
Oh, my AirPod.
I like this project. I think it's fun, and I think it's a nice way. I wish I would have been here the whole time, so I'm sorry about that. But I do really like this because I got a couple of different perspectives, which was nice. So I was in my own bubble reading this book for a really long time over the summer and then just now, and I'm just like, oh my god, I love it. I was really loving it. So those are my closing thoughts.
Ty.
My closing thoughts, I also think that this is fun. It was also great. Like, on one hand, I was just like, man, like, the only person who liked this book isn't gonna be here. I was just, because I remember before you left, like, you had already, like, read, like, half of it, and you were just like, oh my god, it's so good. And I was just like, oh, look, I'm excited to read it. And I, like, put it off because I am just the worst. And then I was just like, oh, okay, I can see why it's likable. I just don't like it that much, you know? But yeah, this is totally fun. Like, this is something that, like, I don't know, like, this is something that this is a book that I probably wouldn't pick up if it was just, like, recommended by somebody. But I'm glad I picked it up. So I think, like, this is going to be a great way to, you know, expand my reading horizons.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how to words anyway. Yeah, so I think it's going to be great.
Awesome. Okay. My closing thoughts. This book wasn't for me. It might be at a later point. Most reviews are favorable for this book, so you should probably check it out. And I'm excited to read some poetry. I haven't read some poetry in a while, so that's going to be good. And I'm really happy that we're doing this. And yeah. Yay! If you guys read the book, come back and let me know in the comments what you think about it. And again, remember, Sunday, January 24th on this channel to discuss the next book. Check it out. Join us. Yitty, yitty, yada, yada, yip, yap, zip, zap, zap. Yay! And bye!
Bye!
Bye! Oh no, end broadcast.